All right, everyone, welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Cape podcast. With us today is our missing in action friend who's back for another episode, Alex. Welcome back.
Hey, buddy, how are you?
I'm good. You're there. You go.
Yeah, I mean, I know you, Mister, busy over here. Interviews after interviews after interviews.
Huh?
You're gonna apply you're gonna send your resume to NBC, huh? Become like a
Already did.
news anchor. Nice, nice,
I'll
of
be
course.
working. I'll be working for DC Comics, the best comic book place.
Debatable, but
Mm, yeah.
to each his own. To each his own. Okay.
Well, that brings us into an interesting story. To Doctor Doom and the Fantastic Four. Um,
Yes.
1961, first issue. Now, this is where I think it gets the most interesting. Depending on who you listen to, there's the rumor, the legend that the guy who's in charge of it wasn't DC Comics at the time. What was it? National something. I can't remember the name. Um, who's becoming DC Comics was bragging about how well the Justice League was doing, and the Justice League is so good, it's outperforming. I mean, at the time, it was. I mean, Justice League was, I think, one of the bigger groups that was put together for comic books.
Right.
And
Right.
someone there had gone to. Now, this is all rumor. This was all legend. But someone did overhear something like that. I think they got on record. I can't remember, one of the editors or person that sat on the chair went to Stan Lee and said, you know, why don't you give a team a chance? Let's do a Justice League. Let's put something together. And
Mhm.
Stan Lee really wanted to. He was tired because at the time too. This time in Marvel, he wasn't. He wasn't running Marvel. He was still art director, and I don't know if he was editor in chief at that time. I can't remember the.
Yeah, yeah, he was kind of like he was still like in the bullpen, right? So he was like one of the head writers. He was one of the head writers.
Well, and art director.
Yeah, yeah, art director. He was like kind of like guy, like getting like his guys, like the artists, to assigning, like issues and stuff like that. But like during this time, like he was like still kind of like quite embarrassed about working for a comic book company, because like back then, if you told somebody you work for comic book companies, like, oh, so you're working on kid books, like, that's how everyone saw, oh, so you're working on like, like disposable like stories for children, so, and he got a lot of like grief about that, or he felt that he did, and so like at that time, like, right, he was about to kind of like just like quit and like go off and do something, like either become like a professional like novelist, or do a completely different like career change, you know. And I don't know if you want to continue on with your story before I finish up with with about Stan Lee. So go ahead.
Well, so what happens is Stan Lee finally wants to make a comic book that he can. He was tired of essentially getting the rundown of this is the script, make the comic book. He wanted to finally kind of make something that was his and something that
Yes.
everyone would enjoy reading.
Right.
And that's
Exactly.
where
Yeah.
the Fantastic Four kind of came in. Now, the part that is still a mystery to me, and I haven't looked into the history, I'm sure it's out there,
Mhm.
was technically the Human Torch was already made.
Yes.
And I
Yes.
think we discussed it on another podcast. We were going through the history of comic books. I think the Human Torch is one of the first Marvel heroes made. I think that was like the first one, and
Him.
he wasn't even like a person; he was a robot,
No.
wasn't he?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, he was a
Yeah.
robot. He was created kind of to fight the Nazis. Him and Namor were both created,
Well,
and
Namor actually was with Timely Comics because Marvel had acquired Timely.
right,
So
right, right.
Namor had come out quite a bit ago, which we'll get into a little bit too, because he didn't get reintroduced till I think issue 4. But anyway, Stan Lee teams up. Obviously, Jack Kirby and him during this time. I mean, this is where most of Marvel gets made,
Hmm.
early to mid 60s. Now, this is where, depending on who you believe and who you support, who actually made the Fantastic Four.
Right, right.
Stan Lee will go on record saying that he pretty much did all the writing and kind of developed the characters. good old Jack just kind of made some doodles and fitted it all together. If you ask Jack Kirby, he designed the characters. They kind of split the writing more like 60-40, and they just kind of both collaborated on it. But Kirby has gone on file calling Stan Lee a liar about being the creator of the Fantastic Four. Now, Alex is a Stan Lee. That's his adopted father, who Stan Lee
I
family doesn't know it yet, but
I
I don't know how you feel about that news.
I mean, if it's true, I'm not surprised by it. But I mean, I would never, like, I will say that Stanley never ever like, he did give credit to Jack Kirby as far as like the artwork goes, the style, and coming up with like the look of Fantastic Four. I do believe that
Oh yeah, he
Stanley
definitely.
has, yeah, I mean, he totally gave him credit for that. So I want to say that it's not like Stanley never gave any credit to Jack Kirby. For Stan, like, he's always gone on record, like you said, that he was the one who came up with the idea with the story about the being cosmic rays and all this stuff like that. Whether I don't know the part of Jack Kirby of how what he said. It maybe like they collaborated and Jack had some ideas and Stanley took them and just called it his ideas is totally
Mhm.
possible. Um, but as being, like I said, like, I've always focused on Stanley because I've been a big Stanley fan and read his biography, read the Stanley back comic book graphic novel, watched documentaries. I've heard him personally tell this story over and over again and again. So from my understanding, like, he was going to quit, and like you said, but he really wanted to make like a book that was his own. And his wife was like, look, just go ahead and do it. You're gonna quit anyway. If they're gonna fire you, whatever, just go and do it. And so with that, inspiration, and that confidence, he, went on to, like, type up and work with Jack on creating the Fantastic Four, which, launched the current Marvel run that we have right now. Without the success of the Fantastic Four, um, Marvel wouldn't be what it is today. The superhero, other giant competitor
Yeah.
to DC Comics. And from there, his next one I want to say was the Incredible Hulk, or
Probably.
was this? And then Spider Man, because Spider Man was 1963,
Yeah.
and then what else? And then the X-Men came out the year after that, I believe. I'm not too sure about the timelines, but yeah, I'm saying, like, after that there was just on a roll. Like, Marvel was just on a
Well,
roll,
and
one after another after
that's a
another.
key point, and the reason they were on a roll is it was the Fantastic Four line that started what is now known as the Marvel method. Um,
Yeah, yeah,
and the
the
Marvel
Marvel.
method is you don't make a 20-page script and try to make a comic book. What you would do is I'd go to Alex and be like, all right, hey, Alex, Fantastic Four versus Giant Cockroach, and go. And they
Yeah,
made a comic based around a plot line instead of actually trying to flesh out dialogue and then convert it to a comic book, which probably did help them get a lot more comics on the shelf at that time and move series a lot faster.
yeah.
When you look at an ASM run from Stanley, I mean that's like 435, 500.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You look at most Marvel lines, I mean that's easily all 500. Um, I mean they were putting out so many comics, so that was definitely, I think that contributed to a lot of kind of their rise with this comic book and just kind of really starting Marvel just putting out hero after hero.
Yeah, I mean, and I feel like it was really smart and different play, when it came to approaching comics, because, I mean, well, I mean, they had to compete, right? And the competitor
For
was
sure.
DC Comics, so they're like, okay, we gotta spit out some, let's just take some concepts, put them together, like you said, and then let's like make the storyline around those two concepts. So like you said, like Avengers versus like a giant lizard. What lizard is this? Is a radioactive lizard. Or whatever. And then also like the having them um doing crossovers. I think,
Yeah.
and I don't know. Like, I mean, I think I might be wrong on this, but I think the first crossover with Marvel was Fantastic Four and Spider Man.
Uh, it might be. I
Yeah,
couldn't tell you that for sure.
I think so. I think that was the first crossover. So Spider Man, like had to go, break into Fantastic Four space for some reason, and
Well, he wanted to join. He wanted to join the Fantastic Four. I
That's
think
right.
I know what
That's
you're talking
right.
about now.
Yes,
I
yes.
think it was issue 2 or issue 3 of the Amazing Spider-Man. Because it's the cover I know, because I have that poster somewhere in my collection with Spider-Man stretched out like this on the wall.
Yep, yep.
Because he needed money. And he wanted to go apply at the Baxter Building.
Yeah, because he was getting tired of people seeing him as like this vigilante and getting negative press. Where if he were to join the Fantastic Four, who were seen as like positive superheroes, then maybe he get some legitimacy, and yes, maybe he would get some money out of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, so that's kind of like the quick background of how the Fantastic Four came to be, and
Well, we'll say
and
now how the Fantastic Four really came to be.
oh yeah,
I feel like is a story we all know at this point.
yeah,
Which I
yeah,
think, which is really interesting because you have a lot of movies that try to do new origin stories. I mean, X-Men Wolverine Origins took like one version of Wolverine. But we've had even in X1, the first X-Men movie, that was a different origin. There's a lot of different origins, and you have a lot of people doing it differently, or they're taking
hmm
maybe one issue or one run that they really like to make the movie. The Fantastic Four, no matter how many times you look at the show, you look at the really old movie, you look at all the new movies, it's the same origin story across the board. Like if there's one thing that stays constant, um, in kind of across the universe is how the Fantastic Four came to be.
yeah, yeah. Even in what, which I gotta admit, I never saw the remake version of the Fantastic Four, the one with Michael B. Jordan. From my understanding, it took liberties from like the Ultimate
Yeah.
Fantastic Four. But even that, I mean, like even if like even the only difference between that two was like, the original Fantastic Four was they were launched into space and hit by cosmic rays, and this one they went into a parallel world or another dimension, and the radiation from that planet gave them powers. I mean, am I wrong about that? Or
Yeah,
yeah,
no, I mean that's
yeah,
pretty much the basis of it. I mean, no matter what you
yeah,
look, no matter how you look at it, it will always be some sort of cosmic force that's alternating or altering the genes of their nature,
hmm
which gives us. And again, that's another thing too. It's no one's ever tried to remake the Fantastic Four. There have been other members. There have been secondary Fantastic Fours,
yeah,
but
but yeah.
our founding members are the same,
Hmm.
and that is Reed Richards, Mr. Fantastic, Susan Storm, the Invisible Woman, Invisible Girl,
Right.
depending on what you want to say. Uh, Good old Johnny Storm, the Human Torch, as we all know and love, and then Mr. Ben Grimm, the Thing, um, which is really weird. And it's hard to look at him ever watching those old videos where they had the thing with the rings, and he says, "Thing ring, do your thing," and he like
Uh,
hits them together. It's really hard to to look at the thing after watching that video.
like they were really trying to like market and like squeeze everything they can, like out of the Marvel line. And so they saw the thing back in the 60s. They're like, what? This guy can have his own show. And let's just make like some kid have like some magical rings. So it says, it's clobbering time, and
He did though. He said, "Thing ring, do your thing."
a thing ring, do your thing. Okay.
That,
Well, and then he became the thing, and it was really
not
weird.
good. It was very
Yeah,
weird.
yeah, it was very weird. So But
Well, and that's always been a point of contempt
yeah,
for Ben Grimm, and I think that's out of all the Fantastic Four members, that probably is what makes him the most charismatic, I guess, and the most like wanting. Is because he can't turn off his powers. He can't have a normal
no,
life.
you can't.
Everything for
Yeah,
him is different versus the other three.
yeah,
He goes through a lot more challenges, even when like natural disasters have happened and whatnot. I mean, he's I wouldn't say he's not immortal, as we've found out through many storylines,
yeah.
but he will outlast pretty much most of them. So
Hmm.
yeah, I'd say he's the easiest to read.
Yeah, you know,
I personally can't stand Reed Richards.
I mean, I mean, like, isn't he like just like the boring smart guy? I mean, that's how I've always seen him. You know, I mean, like,
No,
there've been other interpretations where he has like a huge ego and like he's always right and stuff like that. You know, the ones that I've read, he's kind of like like caring. You know, kind of like the caring dad. You know, like he's the like he tries his best and he's not perfect.
He's the Tony Stark if Tony Stark was a good person.
Okay, right, right,
I mean, that's essentially what it is. Because I mean,
right.
him and Tony Stark. I mean, essentially, I don't know if anyone's ever done like the IQ or side by side of what they've invented, but Reed Richards has not only built like all their supplies and all that, all their suits, but I mean, he's invented. I mean, I think most things for other superheroes. I mean, he's the one who had Venom under
Yeah,
examination when they came back from the Secret Wars.
yeah. Then he extracted Venom from Spider-Man
Yes, I
and
believe
kept
so.
right and kept them in a contained like unit until he broke out, and that's how he met up with Eddie Brock and became the Venom that we know. And there have been like other what if stories, like the not to sidebar, but there is a what if story. It would have been Grimm,
Oh, the What If Dark
you know.
series was fantastic, and that
Yeah,
was a really good issue, along with that whole
yeah,
series. It was good.
yeah. So that was really good. Um, but um, but yeah, Reed Richards is like the like where like Tony Stark is like he's kind of like the like his machines are all about like kind of like the suit and like pot and like kind of like weaponry, where Reed Richards the machines are more like for the exploration of our universe, knowing more about like learning more about like where we live and all this stuff like that, and unlocking the secrets of the universe, right? So Reed Richards has always been, I think, more of an explorer than a superhero.
Yeah,
I think if he had to choose one, he would choose his full time focusing on like exploration rather than fighting, like the mole man or something like that.
yeah. I mean, for sure. So obviously, our four members of the Fantastic Four, Mister Fantastic, elasticity,
Hmm.
technically shape shifting to a degree, but I don't think it's. I mean, this
Yeah,
is a Mystique.
no, yeah, or he's not like Plastic Man, like for example, like
Yeah,
he's not like like Plastic Man from DC. He
I
can't
guess more form fitting to a degree. I guess.
he can like flatten himself to get under places,
Yeah,
stretch stuff like that. And then Invisible Woman. She not only does she have the power of like invisibility, but she also like brings up shields. She has somewhat of a telekinetic, like pushing. She can push objects away. I don't think
yeah,
she can bring them. So hers is a little bit limited, but she's also somewhat smart. I mean, somewhat smart. Sorry. I mean, she's also a scientist, in her own regard as well. And that's why the attraction between the two. And Johnny Storm, basically uh, like the original Human Torch. He has the ability to fly. He has the ability to shoot fire as well. Is there anything else? Like I'm not,
no, I mean,
knowing.
the Human Torch probably had the thing that everyone. I mean, it's fire.
Yeah,
Um, Plain and
yeah,
simple. The only one that really like no one ever really knew the extent of kind of what they could do or what was possible was Invisible Woman. Um, again, psionic powers and psychic powers is always it's always a hard one to kind of cap. Same thing with
Right.
Ben Grimm. I don't think they really, and he's, I mean, he's taken beatings. He's come back. I mean, he's
Yeah,
uh,
yeah. I mean, there was a while where he had to wear a metal mask
yeah,
because he got in a fight with the Hulk so bad that the Hulk pretty much like bashed his face to almost like rubble, and he had to like wear a mask to while he was healing, you know, because he was so like disfigured, and his rocks, yes, like his outer layer is like made out of rock, but like there was like this, I don't know, like this panel I saw where like each layer was like being pulled apart and like underneath was like flesh or muscle. So
yeah,
it's not just, like it's not just like this rock that he's like being covered. It's more like I don't know if you could call it like eczema, like I mean if you have to compare it, like, I mean like just like really like like organic. I guess like we can call it like organic rock,
yeah. I
right?
mean, I think to a degree you could go that route.
Yeah.
Now
So
that being said, there have been a lot of members of the Fantastic Four. I think the most notable ones that have come through, which is it's such a weird collection of the ones that have come through that like kind of stuck for longer. Um, Spider-Man, as we all know,
right,
him and Johnny Storm were pretty much best friends.
yeah, and like he'll come in, if like one of the Fantastic Four aren't available, he'll come in and fill in. For a while, like the Fantastic Four were known as the future. What was it,
Future
Ryan?
Foundation.
Future Foundation. Yes, thank you.
Yeah,
Future Foundation, because Johnny Storm apparently died, and so they asked Spider-Man to kind of take his place. And
yeah.
that's where you get the white and black suit. For Spider-Man. Um, and then another
Black Panther.
member, Black Panther. Black Panther was introduced through Fantastic Four
Yep.
comic. Yeah, so he was the first introduction of Black Panther was through a Fantastic Four comic book. Later, he got his own storyline. Um,
She-Hulk.
She-Hulk is a really famous one that joins the Fantastic Four. That comes and helps out. She had a big crush on Ben Grimm for a while. You know, she loved
Well,
Ben Grimm.
she had a crush on quite a few. We really want to
Yeah,
get into it.
yeah, yes, yes, right, right. Um, And then I remember like there is like an alternative, like if the Fantastic Four ever like disappeared or something, there was like a replacement, and like those members were like Ghost Rider, Wolverine, Gray Hulk, and
Yeah.
Spider Man, right?
I think Miss Marvel was a part of it. I think Luke Cage.
Hmm.
The other big thing about the other members that were part of the Fantastic Four, even temporarily, that introduced us, is I feel like the Fantastic Four is really the only ones that ever really interacted with the Inhumans.
Yeah, no, the humans were introduced through Fantastic Four as
Yeah.
well. Yeah, yep, they're introduced.
Even after they were introduced through it, like if you were to ask me right now to go and start thinking about all the Marvel comics with it in there, like I don't know if I
Like
could
they,
like point it out.
yeah, I mean the humans like in the early days, I think only did like in the '60s, were only interacting with the Fantastic Four. I mean later on down the line they interacted with like more recently like like X-Men.
Yeah.
And their storyline between X-Men and the humans, there was a huge fight between the two because um now a lot of people like kind of compare the two, like, oh, the humans are just like X-Men, like they're mutants, and the humans, and I'm like, well, I mean, they're a little bit different because the humans got their powers, through extraterrestrial source, where X-Men are mutants. They're a natural evolution of the next human evolution, and like the mist that which I'm forgetting the name right now, that they
The
use.
Tetragan mist, or I'm
Yes,
pretty
yeah,
sure it's under them.
yeah. So they use that mist to unlock the genes of this alien gene. I guess like humans, a part of the population has that unlocks these abilities, right? So in the storyline, that crystal or whatever was housing it was destroyed, and then it was just going around the earth, right,
Yeah.
affecting like anyone that had this gene and unlocking their potential. That's how Miss Marvel, the modern day Miss Marvel, um in the comic books became, because she was an Inhuman in the
Yeah.
comics. That's how she got her powers. But this mist also was killing mutants. So if a mutant got into contact with this mist, they would die. And so there was a storyline where the X-Men are like, look, the mutants or whoever was like, look, we need to destroy this mist. Otherwise, it's gonna, keep on going, it's gonna kill our kind. And the humans like, well, if you destroy the mist, then it's gonna kill our kind, because that's the only way that we continue to thrive. How we repopulate is through this mist. So there was a huge fight, about that. I don't remember how it
Always a
ended.
fight.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, the Inhumans were introduced through Fantastic Four. The Skrulls were introduced through Fantastic Four as well. That's
Super
how
Scroll.
Super Skrull. Yeah, Super Skrull. I mean, because they were
But
um
Alex enjoyed the show Super Scroll a lot more, guys. Don't ever let him fool you.
which show are you talking about? The live action one, Ryan?
What show? We don't discuss it.
No, we don't discuss the. I'm still waiting for them to make a live action version of Secret Invasion. I can't wait for them to actually make a live action version of Secret
Yeah.
Invasion.
Oh
So
man, it's gonna be wild.
it's gonna be great, great.
Um, I think two other characters that have more to do than anything with Marvel right now, which is why probably everyone, including us, should go back and read Fantastic Four. Number one, Agatha Harkness was the babysitter of the children to
Yeah.
Reed Richards,
Yes.
and Invisible Woman. Um, the biggest thing that's going to be huge is obviously Doom. Everyone knows that Doom is the Fantastic Four. That's their main villain, because the Fantastic Four doesn't have a lot of rogues in their. I feel like they're more
No.
of like the assist, but
Yeah.
Doctor
No.
Doom is one of those big ones. Now what is really interesting in every movie, as much as they get the origin story like correct, almost every story wants to make it that like the group of the Fantastic Four and Doom were like in a project together.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
wasn't the origin.
No. 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 It wasn't.
Because him and Reed Richards were rivals in college.
Right.
Because
Right.
Victor Von Doom got, I guess, I don't want to say kicked out, but he kind of left because he had a lot of stuff. His mom, I know, I want to say she was killed or died later, and she was heavily into a cult. And that's the thing that makes Doom most dangerous compared to Reed Richards, is that Doom does rely on both technology and magic.
Yeah. Yeah. I
You
mean,
you could say he's mechanical, but
yeah, but
he does know magic.
yeah, he delves into both. I mean, he's definitely like a big threat. Like Doctor Doom, the way his origin was, from my understanding, was like, I think he was doing an experiment at college.
Yeah, he was trying to commune with his mom.
Right, using like both science and mysticism, and there was an explosion, and that pretty much backfired onto him and caused him to um be disfigured in
Yeah.
a sense. Yeah, and then from there, then he had to go back to Liberia, his
Well,
home.
this is where it gets interesting. Let me rock your world here.
Okay,
Reed Richards, number one, before this experiment happened, warned him that there was a fatal flaw in the machine and not to do it. But
right.
he was still going to go through with it. It's later revealed that Ben Grimm, who severely hated Victor Von Doom while they were in school, had tampered with the machine, something that he fought for the rest of his life, because that tampering to the machine is what made Doctor Doom that they have today. Had he not tampered with the machine and the disastrous results, it is very possible that we would have
Not
maybe
gone.
seen an arrogant man, more of like I guess a Graydon Creed for anyone that's familiar, in X-Men, more of a politician, but we wouldn't have what we had today.
Which is the dictator, right?
Well, and
Yeah.
again, that's a whole nother issue, because if you look at Doctor Doom's what he's done for his country,
It was actually, yeah.
we could possibly debate that he's the best president
We
ruler
could, yeah.
realistically.
Right.
So that, I mean, that's, like I said, Fantastic Four, they introduced a lot. I feel like we got there. I mean, I feel like Fantastic Four is just such an easy like. All right, well, let's introduce this. Let's introduce this. I will say the Fantastic Four, the Silver Surfer, and Galactus, the Herald of Galactus, and Galactus. That was also that was number one. It was a great story. I always like the Silver Surfer. I think it's a fun read because that's for Marvel. I mean, like DC, we have Green Lantern, we have all these space sectors. It's more, I think it's more common than anything, so it's more used to it. Marvel, we didn't have. I don't think we got a lot of it right away, and then they did branch into it. Silver Surfer was the first time, and Galactus there was a kind of a real threat.
Yeah, I mean, like Galactus, I guess, was the first global threat, maybe.
I mean,
For
worldly because he's technically, to a degree, he's immortal-ish.
yeah,
Um,
right, and that was introduced through Fantastic Four. Um, like the first, like I guess, Marvel main event, right? Like I mean, where it was like
I think it was one of them.
yeah, I mean, speaking about Fantastic Four's Rogues Gallery, so yeah, so you have Doom, you have Galactus, you have the Mole Man, and then you have the Skrulls. The Skrulls were their antagonists. Namor later, you know, he was an antagonist as well. Let me see, and then there was another one. I'm trying to find it right now. Let me see.
Ooh, you son of a. Um, Galactus for me in that
An-
storyline was important. Oh, yeah.
Annihilus,
Well, that's what I was about
Annihilus.
to say.
Yeah, the
Annihilus is
Puppet
big because
Master. Yeah,
the Puppet Master. Well,
Kang the
Annihilus was big
Conqueror. Kang the
again.
Conqueror too.
King Conqueror, I don't put together with Fantastic Four.
The Beyonder was introduced through the Fantastic Four,
Correct.
or no? Okay.
I think so. But Annihilus and Galactus were big because that is what gave us introduction to the Deviants and the Eternals. I don't know if that was issue number one for them, but that was a big conflict for the Eternals and the Deviants and that kind of that whole sector of it, and they're dealing with that because
Right.
Galactus was Galactus a Deviant? No, he wasn't. I thought he was an Eternal for some reason. I think
Yeah.
Nihilus, I'm pretty sure, is an Eternal.
Mm-hmm. Right. Right. I guess Ghost Rider was Ghost Rider introduced to Fantastic Four.
No, I think he
No.
was. He just
And
teamed up.
he's teamed up. Okay, that's right. Um, but yeah, I mean, there are some other ones. I mean, like the Wizard, I guess, and like some other villains that not as like like popular, or like they were like they're villains of other heroes that also were villains of Fantastic Four. But yeah, Doom, I feel like Doom has become like so like of a mainstream villain now. Like he's gone like beyond being just a villain for the Fantastic Four. Like now he's like gonna become like a villain for the whole Marvel universe itself.
I
You know?
mean, and that's so. I guess it's really hard to even talk that because he's gone in and out of so many different ways of being, uh, and kind of like his storyline. That I mean, you could kind of put him as an unofficial member of the Fantastic Four because I mean, he technically has helped them.
And like he's the godfather of one of
Valeria Richards.
the yeah. So here's the thing with Marvel lately. I mean, Marvel has gone to like make their villains like redeemable. Like first they make them bad, right? Because they have to be villains, and then they later down line, then they make them redeemable, and then they change it to now they're back to being bad again. You know, so it's like and and I don't know if I'm like down for that. I mean, because like it feels like very inconsistent. You know what I mean? And
Well,
it's
I
like
mean,
confusing.
I feel like that's one of those things where we go through. There's some things that just make sense for it. Doctor Doom is one of those that just to me that adds up because again he was never really he wasn't really a bad guy.
Okay. I mean, but there were parts like he did want to he did want world domination. I guess his reasons for wanting world domination was because he felt that he could make the world better. But then way to do that was like, well, I gotta control it.
Yeah.
So I get it. I get it. I get it. Valeria, I mean, he was very took his oath as being a godfather seriously with her. Um, like he was like, I'm your godfather, and so he took that role very seriously. I guess he was just like, you know what, like he had the kind of the mentality of like, you know what, I know what to do, and anyone gets in my way is gonna get hurt, you know.
Yeah.
So just that mentality, and then also like he wanted to have like the cosmic power, like he wanted like to be have the power of the Beyonder, you know, so that he can make the world his own image, and the same aspect of as like Thanos, I guess, Thanos from the Marvel movies, the way he saw it was like like eliminate half the population so that the other you know so that we're not eating like I don't know whatever his reason was, but but I can see it, I can see like like him being more the sympathetic villain. I mean the same with Magneto, I guess. Magneto the same way. Magneto wants his species to thrive, and he
Yeah.
feels because he feels that humanity is just full of hatred for his kind, that he doesn't see any other way for his kind to survive but to fight back. So
For sure.
yeah.
Yeah, correction, and both the Nihilists and Galactus are not Eternals or Deviants of any kind. I don't know why I thought they were. I was just looking it
I
up.
thought I thought Galactus was an Eternal, to be
I
honest. I mean,
thought, or at least part of it, but he's not. Uh,
yeah,
that blows my mind because I always thought for some reason he was connected to him.
right, right.
But it turns out,
So
now in terms of storylines, I mean, there's quite a bit. Now, I know Alex isn't familiar with as much of them. Um, that's probably just. I mean, they have so many
right.
long ones. Do you have any that you do remember offhand?
I do, and the mostly crossover ones, to be honest. So there is the one, like I mentioned earlier, when the Fantastic Four became the Future Foundation, when Johnny Storm died and Spider-Man took over for in Johnny Storm's place. There is the story of the Civil War storyline where Reed Richards and Tony Stark teamed up, and Reed came up with the mathematical formula of if we don't change something now, then the world's going to end.
No.
And that's why Tony Stark was so um, fixated on having this superhuman registration act passed because of Reed Richards' mathematical formula of predicting the future. And then another one, I mean, there's obviously, Galactus, the Silver Surfer, trying to take over, devour the Earth, Is there any other ones that I know? The
Well,
ultimate
yeah,
ones, the ultimate
Ultimate's always
one.
good.
Yeah, I mean, that's how I started my Fantastic Four, because I was into the Ultimates when they were coming out, and I thought it was going to be a good way for me to hop on the Fantastic Four. But obviously, they diverged from the origin a little bit, Ultimate storyline. But the Ultimate storyline introduced Marvel Zombies,
Yep.
which kicked off its own line, after, but they were introduced to the Ultimate Fantastic Four. So those are the ones that pop up, in my mind.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone's familiar with the Galactus issues, which is 48 to 50. But I think the one cover that everyone knows, I think it's issue 49. That's like the key issue. That's the one that everyone remembers.
Mhm.
The one that was the most interesting, I don't know if I would read it again, but it was interesting, was Fantastic Four Hereafter. And Doctor Doom switches minds with Ben Grimm and essentially forces Reed Richards to kill Ben Grimm. So this story, he's racked with guilt and doubt. So he's on a mission to try to find a way to bring Ben back. And for once, he realizes that he can't, like, science is just not enough. He goes almost like a Dante's Inferno kind of story. At one point, I think he even goes into heaven and he starts to break through the panels itself, like with the penciling and the penciler and like a higher force. And it's crazy because there's not really, it's like one of those runs where there's not like he's fighting Doom and like he's putting his fist like right in his mask and just kind of just pushing him up against the wall. Like it's really like a journey of, what happened, what family means and everything like that.
Mhm.
And trying to bring back Ben Grimm. Um, that one really sticks out. And the one that I remember, because I still want to try to find this issue somewhere, uh, and I don't know if I'll ever be able to afford it or find it, is The Trial of Reed Richards. And I only know it because I was so in love with the cover, because it's Reed Richards standing front and center in shackles, ready for trial. And like, I think somehow they like it. I don't know if it's the first or the second time that they had beaten Galactus or have gotten rid of him. But because Galactus wasn't around to feed on these worlds and kind of, I guess you could say like it was like a cosmic court to thin the population and kind of thin the herd.
Mhm.
All the calamities that was being caused because Reed Richards took it like out of his own kind of duty almost to stop Galactus. And it threw the world to a degree off balance. And it was just a really, really great story.
Right.
But yeah, those are probably the only ones that really stick with me. Otherwise, I feel like I'm just used to, I guess, to seeing them in other stories. I mean, hell, Ben Grimm was Spider-Man on Spider Island. He had the
Yes,
little
yes, he
suit and he
was.
had web and everything. It was really bizarre because I really wanted them to make his webbing like pebble webbing. I personally think that would have been amazing. I think that was a missed opportunity. But I feel like the Fantastic Four are generally just like, it's always like they're almost on console. Like everyone's like, oh, where do I gotta go to get an invention like this? Oh, I think Reed Richards has one of these. He's the smartest man in the world,
Right, right.
and whatnot.
Yeah.
Uh, and I mean, there's been like some key moments. I mean, I think one of the craziest besides Doctor Doom that Reed Richards has gone up to is Mephistopheles. He's definitely gone up and I know that because that was a big mission in Marvel Ultimate Alliance, was going down to kind of like, I guess Marvel would call like the Hell Realm or whatnot, and the final
Right,
boss
right.
was Mephistopheles, and
Yeah.
there was a side mission to find Reed Richards' null void machine that like dampens like all powers, and that was like one of the side things you could do to enrich the storyline. So I mean, that's just stuff like that. The Fantastic Four is just so deeply kind of ingrained in that.
Yeah, like the Fantastic Four is kind of like you have to compare them to something else. Like, they're kind of like the Robinsons,
Yeah, a Swiss
from
Family Robinson.
yeah, Swiss Family Robinson. Then Lost in Space, also the
Well,
Robinsons. They're
the rumor is that Stan Lee and Jack Kirby got the inspiration from there was an old movie, I think 59, 58. Well, we know it today as Journey to the Center of the Earth. It was an expedition with three men, one woman, as they try to unravel the mysteries going deep into the center of the earth. And I think they said even though like there's not been like admittance like that was inspiration to them, they said based on the trends of comic books and how things were going, it's more than likely that it had something to do.
Yeah, I mean, totally. I mean, like Stan Lee got his inspiration for the Hulk watching Frankenstein.
Yeah.
And then also watching Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. So that was his thing. He was like, what if Dr. Jekyll, instead of transforming into this creepy guy, transform into Frankenstein, essentially, and so that was his kind of like his inspiration to create the Hulk.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, the important part when we look at what the Fantastic Four accomplished, besides all the introductions and people they kind of brought into Marvel, um, Fantastic Four was the first time you saw a family work
Right.
in comic books, because everyone else,
Like a team, like a
it,
family team.
I
Right.
mean, X-Men, I guess I don't want to, discredit X-Men, but X-Men did come later, after everything. And
But
even
right,
then, they weren't like family. I mean, they were teammates.
right, school, like students, yeah.
Yeah, and to a
Yeah.
degree, every other superhero always avoided teams, or they did duos or whatnot, or like a temporary banding. Because I think every hero is always afraid of, what could happen. I can't be liable
Mhm.
for this person. I mean, you look at, all of that. This was the first time where you had a family unit that worked. And granted, they went through their issues. I mean, we can do a whole episode on people that families and superheroes that went through some issues. Reed Richards, God knows he did. So did Ben Grimm and the Human Torch.
Right, right.
But for the most part, I mean, it was just the first time that there was kind of, I guess, a family unit within Marvel where everyone's like a family superhero team.
Yeah, I mean, like I mean, before that, I mean, like you said, there was just Justice League, but the Justice League was just like other superheroes teaming together, where the Fantastic Four was actually like a team from start to finish. Like
Yeah.
they were a family. I mean, the storyline started out of this family, not just individual people coming together, right? It started out as a family. They got the powers together as a family, and now they're a team together. And so I think that was the first, from my understanding, like the first time that has ever happened, in the comic, in comics. And from there, then, it spawned off into like the X-Men, and then eventually Avengers, came in later, and which is just more, that's more of the Justice League route, you know with that group. But yeah, I know, I mean, they're still a family. A lot of people say, like, I mean, and maybe they're right. Like a lot of people look at the Incredibles, from Disney's Incredibles, and they see that, as, kind of like, what should have been, the Fantastic Four, what Fantastic Four should be. It should be like the Incredibles, you know.
I mean, it kind of was when you
Yeah,
look at it.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah, yeah.
Mister
It is.
Mister Incredible is your Ben Grimm. I mean,
Mhm.
Elastigirl, your Reed Richards. Violet was the Invisible Girl. Dash himself, I mean, didn't have
Human Torch.
fire, but he
Right,
was essentially the same personality. Yeah,
right,
no, I
right.
think you could 100% say it's almost a direct homage to the Fantastic Four.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I mean, totally. And maybe I kind of agree. I think maybe it might have been a missed opportunity for Disney not to have that director make a live action version of the Fantastic Four. But I can't say that yet, because I love, um which I know, I'm sorry, I'm wrong. And I don't know who's directing Fantastic Four, actually. I can't, I'm completely blank.
Well, the new
Um
movie too will be interesting just because it from what it sounds like is we're not going back to another origin story. We're going to,
no,
like, they already had their powers
yeah,
and we're like in a mid-60s time frame.
in an
Um
alternate universe, right?
yeah, so
Yeah.
it's going to be interesting to see where they're going to draw um
Which I'm all for not telling another origin of Fantastic Four. We've had two already. It's like Spider-Man, when they decided to like bring Spider-Man to the MCU. Don't do an origin of Spider-Man. Just do him, becoming a hero. Same
yeah.
thing with the Fantastic Four. I don't need another origin of Fantastic Four. I know how they got the powers. I mean, I do appreciate the little flashbacks they do, with the newsreels, seeing, kind of like their. I mean, and maybe that's all we need. All we need is just like a quick newsreel of them getting their powers, and that's it. And then the rest is about them fighting Galactus or whatever the storyline is going to be.
Well, and that's what makes it more interesting too. Is now that Robert Downey Jr. has been casted as Doom, which I'm still on the fence about, because I know he can nail the part. I just splitting yourself like that is just really odd. There's so many questions, but we'll wait to see it.
Yeah,
You know,
there are a lot
are
of
we? I
questions.
mean, are we gonna get a glimpse of like that Doom coming into the Fantastic Four movie, even as like a end credits and like tearing apart the timeline to that as he brings us maybe into another timeline? Because so many things have been shelved at Disney.
Yeah,
And they've just been canceling stuff left and right as they try to kind of reformat, I think, kind of switch gears and really figure out where they're going. Um, how is that Doom going to be involved? I mean, that's the one thing when they gave us kind of the unveiling, they didn't give a lot of exact details of when and where,
hmm
at least to my understanding. I think he's in the last two films they confirmed, the ones
for
that are
Doom.
now, yeah,
He's going to be in. He's going to be in Secret Wars, and
as he
he's
should.
going. Yeah, and they're making a movie called Doomsday. You know, so Avengers Doomsday. So he's going to be in that. As far as anything else, no, they have been kept. They
Yeah.
kept it hush hush. You know,
Yeah. So like I said, I mean,
so
they confirmed two films for us.
right, right.
But he has
So
to make a cameo in the Fantastic Four film.
I mean, hopefully, hopefully they do that. I mean, I know they're trying to make Doom the main bad guy for the MCU, right? Um, but it'd be crazy not to introduce like a small cameo of him in Fantastic Four. I don't. I mean, like I'm all for him not being the main bad guy in the Fantastic Four because we had like three other iterations with him,
Well,
you know,
yeah. And
and
it's crazy because of this. And as you mentioned before, King the Conqueror kind of being one of their people that they went up with is Reed Richards and his son, Franklin and whatnot. There was they had a lot of inventions a lot of time with interdimensional travel and time travel.
right.
That got them, I feel like that got the Fantastic Four into quite a bit of trouble with that technology. So I am very curious if Marvel is going to incorporate that as essentially maybe the link between Marvel movies, because you have a lot of really good stuff with Marvel that's kind of shattered.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
look at the Marvels. I don't know if you saw it. Um,
Yeah, I did. I did. I saw it.
the way it ended, and for everyone
Yeah, I mean,
listening, I think it's old
yeah.
enough that we could talk about the spoiler.
Yes,
Monica
yes, yes.
Monica Rambeau. I mean, what world did she go to with the X-Men?
I mean, I doubt I doubt it's the one that Deadpool or Wolverine is in. I think it is a different alternate timeline that happens to have another version of the X-Men in it.
Correct. But
You know.
so I guess at that point, it makes me wonder, you know, because we're getting an alternate timeline, Fantastic Four.
hmm
Um, are we going to see this as an alternate timeline, and
Well,
we're going to keep the suits, or are we going to maybe have a break where they start to merge?
I mean, if we're gonna talk about that, I mean, in the Secret Wars, not the original Secret War version. I mean, I think they're going with the modern Secret Wars, where the where the Ultimate Universe and
Yeah,
the 616 collide. So I mean, but in the MCU, it could be like multiple universes colliding with the MCU. Not
yeah.
just Fantastic Four universe, like the X-Men universe, and maybe a different one. Maybe Tobey Maguire's universe is also going to be merging in this. So so maybe we'll have a live version of the Spider Verse. Where Miles Morales is going to come and join in the picture. Then we don't know. We don't know what's happening. I mean, like with I mean, if
Well,
Deadpool and Wolverine.
my theory
Go
has
ahead,
always
sorry.
been that Doctor Doom's going to find Loki, who's the world tree and the connector of all worlds now,
I mean,
after he
that'd be
took over,
cool.
and
That'd be
try to steal
cool.
the power and become
I-
the what was it, the God Doom?
Right. right.
That that's where I personally think it's going. We can quote that, so when it does happen, I come back and say,
Co-
"Yes, I was
and,
right. I was
and
right.
and
Take
get your
that,
check from
Kevin.
Marvel.
Take that, Kevin."
So no, dude, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I believe in the Russo brothers. I think they know their shit, and the fact that Robert Downey Jr. went on record saying, "No, if the Russo brothers come back, I'll come back to Marvel." And the fact that he did, must says, that he believes in their version,
Yeah.
and the storyline that they're going with. So, um, did you want to dive into the past, iterations of the Fantastic Four in media, or do you think like we already know all that
Well,
stuff?
and we talked about it before.
Yeah.
You could tell me anything you want that, and granted, the movies could be done differently. We're not going to argue that. I'm not going to sit here and try to say that they were masterfully done. You just had
Right.
too many people always trying to put too many hands and too many pots and just not really figuring it out. And I think that's what we got. That being said, you go back to the first movie when that movie was made, and we're looking at, what, early 2000s?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
I can't give you an exact date because I can't remember. That's how long ago it was, and I'm getting old. But
2004 or something,
yeah,
I think. Yeah.
but when you look at the effects for it, number one, the thing looked Ben Grimm, Michael Chiklis as Ben Grimm. That was like the best casting direction ever.
There's such a
Spot on.
fun there's such a fun behind the story. I think I already said it on the show,
Yeah,
yeah, but like just I'll reiterate again. He's such a fan. Michael Chiklis is such a Marvel fan. He loves Fantastic Four, and like he loves the character of Ben Grimm. So when he got a call to come in, like he he went full on, and just impressed the executives, enough to where like this guy, he's a one,
yeah,
so I forgot the whole storyline, unfortunately. I just remember him being like, saying like, I'm such a big fan that he went in, introduced himself as Ben Grimm or something, at the audition, rather
yeah.
than himself,
I mean,
so
even when you look at the whole casting as a whole, I mean, people will argue like, "Oh, thank God Chris Evans took Captain America so he could make up for that." He was a great Johnny Storm. He would played that role exactly as it should have been.
yeah, he did.
A
He played
self-absorbed, egotistical young guy. I mean, that's what it was. And what's his
exactly,
name?
yeah.
Eoin Grufford. I probably botched that name. I believe that's um again, he fit the bill for Reed Richards. Like
Yeah,
I have no problem with the casting. Even Julian McMahon, who I think is a great actor, he always plays like a really good guy you just despise or a villain. I
right.
liked
Yeah.
his Doctor Doom. Um,
Mhm.
I have no problem admitting that. I think they ruined the character in the second movie. I think they could have gone a different route when he was trying to like steal the Silver Surfer's
Right.
board and stuff. I think that I think it just got too messy. In the second one, I don't think they really kind of thought out
Hmm.
kind of what they were going to do. I think that's really
Yeah.
kind of where that movie fell flat. Other than that, I even the remake. There's parts of the reboot that I thought were good, and again, casting wise, Michael B. Jordan as Johnny Storm. Again, he fills the role. Like,
Right. Right. Jessica Alba. I've always been a fan of hers. I always thought she's
yes,
been
a
a
fan.
I always liked Jessica Alba. I thought she did great in Sin City, and I thought she can play comedy real well. My introduction to her was through Dark Angel, James
Yep.
Cameron's Dark Angel. So I thought she did really good. Well, I played the Sue Storm really good as well. Um, again, I'm a fan of the first two iterations. I haven't seen the remake, to be honest, because I just heard it was really bad, fortunately, and I just don't I just haven't given it a chance yet. But I remember the cartoons, the anime version of Fantastic Four, that was really great. That's She Hulk. was in there. I remember the '90s version of Fantastic Four, where they had the Hulk
Yeah.
crossover, episodes. Ghost Rider came in, all that stuff like that. I remember even the '60s version where they had like the robot, as a member of Fantastic Four.
Herbie.
Herbie, yeah, Herbie was in there for a while. I'm trying to think of other ones. I mean, like, they play a huge part in the Marvel Ultimate Alliance,
Yeah.
video game. So that was really cool. I'm trying to think of more. The audio, the podcast,
Yeah.
Marvels, they were a huge part in that. Who put up Alex Ross's run of Marvels. They were, this, Alex Ross, and his version of Galactus. Oh, chef's kiss. It was just beautiful, like that artwork. You can never go wrong with Alex Ross's artwork. Um, and yeah, I mean, so far, all the iterations I've been really happy with. I mean, with them,
Well,
and
I
I'm
think
looking
as we said before, the Fantastic Four is just one of those things. It's a foundation. I mean, it's like a cornerstone.
right. Yeah,
They might
yeah.
not be as flashy if we go to like if you were to go to New Comic Book Day today, like you're not going to see like Fantastic Four on the shelf. You're going to see X-Men and Spider-Man predominantly, followed
Hmm.
by maybe some other offshoot characters. So I
Right,
mean, they're definitely on the back seat of the comic books,
right.
but they are an essential pillar that have kind of raised the stories. And even today, I feel like you could read a comic book panel and get a reference to Reed Richards or
Oh
Johnny Storm. I
yeah,
feel like you definitely still see that today because of what they accomplished.
yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, like they're pivotal pillar, in the Marvel universe. I mean, with and they continue to be. I mean, or whether if they have their own storyline or just in part of a huge event, they're there. They're at the forefront.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Well, any closing thoughts on the Fantastic Four?
I am no, I mean, we owe a lot to Fantastic Four. Without the success of Fantastic Four, I don't think you would get what we have today. You wouldn't get the amazing stories that came after it. And you wouldn't have the MCU. So I'm just really looking forward to the this in this version that's coming out, next year, and with Pedro Pascal and the rest of the cast as well, and just hopefully it'll be a fun movie, to go see.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of surprised, comic book wise, that we haven't seen more, especially since the new Ultimate series that have been out. This current Ultimate Spider-Man has been phenomenal, as we
Hmm.
told like an alternate dimension. Peter Parker. I don't know if you read it, where like Mary Jane, he's married with kids.
No, I haven't read it yet, but
Oh
I've heard about
yeah,
it. Yeah, yeah.
and it's been so good. And I am because we've had Black Panther, we've had Ultimate Avengers, Spider-Man. I think there's one more. I think X-Men. I am
Mhm.
surprised we haven't gotten Fantastic Four standalone.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't think like they're as popular in the comics. To be honest, I mean, Dan Slott, I heard they like a really great storyline with them, but it was more like a mini series than not a continuation. Of
Yeah.
the, but because I mean, like maybe they feel that it's just not needed, or that they're just saving them for a bigger event,
And I
to
think
come
we'll
out.
see as the movie gets closer. It wouldn't surprise me if we see more as that approaches with like a tie-in or as like the interest in it comes out that we start to see more digital and maybe single floppies as we get
Right,
closer.
right. Yeah, and same here.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that about covers it for now. I mean, granted, again, we could go on and on and on from just the characters that are introduced. I mean,
Yeah.
the Inhumans, that's one episode right there.
Yep.
From
Yep.
which really was a great TV show. I enjoyed I mean, TV show alone to everything else. So I mean, there's so many things to go on. But I think that about wraps it up right now for the Fantastic Four. I have no closing thoughts. I think we said everything we want to say.
Yep.
Hopefully everyone had had fun listening to this. If you are watching this and or listening to this, please hit subscribe to our YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on Instagram, Beyond the Cape Podcast. And we will see you next time. Everyone, have a good night.
Good night, everybody.